more questions about the nuclear family than anything is why is it even called the nuclear family?
So if you're listening, nuclear family, go ahead and message us and let us know why you're called that.
There's a Green Day song called Nuclear Family.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yep.
Is it good?
And it's all right. It's Green Day. It's Green Day past the year 1997.
I don't think I've heard any of it. I mean, I've heard like the hits. I guess.
I'm sure you've heard "Wake Me Up When September Ends."
Yeah,
which is
mostly at funerals.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I just hurt my own heart making that terribly morbid joke. Ouch.
Welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I am Dan.
And I'm Eric.
And we've always been Dan and Eric.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, except for when we decided that I was Eric and you were Dan. We did that a couple of times.
Well, and then we decided that you and I were both Eric once.
Did we really?
Yeah. That you were a figment of my imagination.
Didn't we also do one where I was Derek and you were Ian or something like that? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So anyway.
Nice. I guess we can talk about this next part when we get to the records. I was going to try to figure out who was going to talk about
the new Metallica song that just came out.
Is there a new Metallica song?
Yes. It's called Lex Eternia.
Lex Eternia?
Lex Eternia, and the new album that's coming out in April is called 72 Seasons.
What does any of this mean?
I don't know. But
what'd you say, Lexa? What?
Lex Eternia. So like
it sounds like an eczema medicine.
Yeah. Well, you know how
nothing is everything. That's the new Metallica song.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite songs.
Nothing is everything. Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get sued by
Sky Rizzy.
Yeah, Lex Eternia.
Yeah, Lex Eternia.
Decides to sue us. Hey, we're just trying to help people with eczema. All right.
Okay.
So the song sounds like a very glossy, overproduced version of like something off of Kill 'Em All, kind of. But it doesn't sound like Kill 'Em All. I don't think they would ever go back to that production, But it sounds like that with like a very interesting solo from Kirk. And I don't know. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard.
Right,
I'll tell you that.
Check it out.
Okay, real quick.
Yes.
I know you wanted to go into a thing, but before you go into that thing, did you hear about Bruce Dickinson and how he's been like a total like boomer lately?
No.
Oh, dude, he like lashed out on some kids smoking weed at an Iron Maiden concert. and I guess that he said, sounds like it was like Steve Harris who was actually the one that was more like bitching about it or something. And Bruce Dickinson says, and by the way, it's not just me, it's also this guy over here. And he pointed to like Steve Harris. And I'm like, are you guys telling me that in your career as Iron Maiden, you did not know that there were probably a huge percentage of people, not just kids, but people of all ages that smoked weed?
Yeah.
Listening to Iron. I mean, come on. If you guys aren't drug users yourselves.
I would venture to guess that there are no Iron Maiden fans that have not smoked weed.
Yeah.
Like, I think you get some weed when you buy an Iron Maiden t-shirt, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like,
here's your weed.
Yeah, like an Otto from the Simpsons type character.
Yeah,
like you have to start buying.
Enjoy your new shirt, man. Here's some weed.
we pulled over a truckload of Killers reissues. We found like a whole bunch of them. They were stocked. Yeah, like so they like Iron Maiden like records start to become illegal.
Officials seized 40 kilos of Iron Maiden tapes.
Anyway, I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's dumb. Anyway.
So, you have some questions about Spotify.
Well, okay. So here's the deal. I don't want to go off, but I'm going to have to, I think. So people have been posting their Instagram Wrapped, right? Like what you've listened to this year and all that stuff. And there's been quite a few people that are like angry about it or think that Spotify is like evil, you know, and they've been really vocal about telling people, you know, Spotify sucks and you telling us what you listen to sucks and you don't support music and you suck. Maybe I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but that's how it sort of felt. So I asked a few questions on my Instagram about it because there were some things I couldn't quite figure out. Like, here's the deal. Everyone on Spotify put their music on Spotify.
Right.
The musicians who have their music on Spotify aren't indentured servants. Like, it's not like slave labor or something. Like, either you put it on there yourself or you signed a contract with a record label and they put it on there. But regardless, you were involved in getting your music on there. So I don't quite understand why everyone's like acting like, I don't know, that it's exploitive or whatever.
Yeah, it's
weird.
That is odd to me because I think that Spotify can't be any worse than any of the other streaming platforms when it comes to like how much artists are getting paid.
Well, yeah, and I looked into that too, because that bothered me that people were like, well, you should just use Apple Music because they pay more. Okay, so Spotify pays 0.004 cents per play. Okay.
Wow.
Which is not good.
Not at all.
Whatever.
I did not realize that.
But Apple Music pays 0.007 cents.
Oh, yeah. So that's a lot better.
Yeah, 0.003 of a cent.
A whole 3 cents more.
And that's a better.
Actually, no, that's not even right. 3 cents. Sorry. So wait a minute. So you're telling me that
not even 3 cents, 3,000.
Wow.
Of a
so
cent.
You hold on a second. You're telling me that artists on no matter what it is, whether it's Apple or Spotify, doesn't even get paid a cent per stream.
Right. Yep.
Wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah. And so the whole thing is flawed, of course, but I don't know. I just don't think that anyone expecting to make money as a musician off of their streams on Spotify, I just think that's a little ridiculous. And yes, they are taking advantage of the musicians. Fine.
Yeah.
But everyone signed up for it.
Well,
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So here's what I'm going to say. I did not, and I am not going to post my Spotify wrap up thing this year. And I'll tell you why. I don't believe it. No, seriously, I do not believe it. The number one artist, I'll tell you right now, was Tom Karauna or whatever his name is. The record that we reviewed, the Strange Planet soundtrack. You remember that?
Yeah.
The hip hop with all the
it was a cool record.
Yeah, a very cool record. That was my number one listened to artist.
Wow.
And it said that I listened to him 4 times.
4? You didn't listen to anything else more than 4 times?
Yeah, exactly. So number one, I did not listen to. I guarantee I listened to that record more than 4 times. That's number one. Number two, I guarantee there are other records and artists that I listen to way more than that. Not that I love that record. It's a great record. So if Spotify is going to if they're going to conspire against me and my tastes, then I can't be a part of. I mean, to me, it's like I've banned the platform in terms of I'm still going to listen to it because I actually really like Spotify, but I've banned the 2022 wrap up for this year. Next year, if they're not conspiring against me, then maybe I will. But so that's why I'm not gonna. But I'll just let you know that was my number one pick. The rest of it was just like, wait a minute, what? I'm mad. I'm mad at Spotify for that. But okay, that'll be it.
So I asked a few questions on my Instagram about it. I asked, do you feel you are being exploited by Spotify?
Yeah.
All right. 55% of the people who answered yes. 45 said no. And I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to tell you the results.
Right.
The next question was, if so, why don't you remove your music from Spotify? Right? Kind of makes sense, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Most people that actually responded to that were just like, no one's making enough money for it to actually matter anyway. So why go through the act of removing it? Yeah. Let's see. The next question was, also, does the 0.002 cents difference between the other streaming services make a difference? And obviously everyone said no. I wasn't trying to have a loaded question there. I really thought if you really think that makes a difference, let me know. And that was pretty much it. But I don't know. It just got under my skin. Sometimes I feel like, and here's the thing, I like Spotify, but I also have my issues with it. You know, like if Spotify could come up with some way to sell physical media like Bandcamp, that'd be sick. And of course it would be amazing. Yeah. But Bandcamp is where you put your stuff to sell it, to make money on it. And Spotify to me is just an advertising site.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. If you're relying, I still think that it's a good idea to have your music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all these places where you're not going to make money off of it. Because if nothing else, on YouTube, you can show your videos. Sure. On Spotify and Apple and what other streaming platforms are out there, SoundCloud, whatever. Yeah. Your music can be listened to for free. And so then you have your Bandcamp where you can actually literally run a store from. And if you're going to make any money at all as a musician, an independent musician these days, that's where you got to go if you're planning on doing that. But then on top of that, you just have to make sure that you have some level of promotion and presentation in order to, I think what this kind of proves more than anything is that the idea that physical copy does not matter in 2022 or 2023 or the future and so on. That idea, I think, is completely like bonkers. Like I still think physical media matters because if you're going to, maybe it doesn't matter as much as it did in the 90s, but if you're going to plan on making any sort of living off of music, if that's what your plan is, you're going to have some sort of product to sell that's not just streaming, on YouTube or not just a YouTube channel where, or a TikTok or anything like that. Like, it's important to have your music available on all those platforms because for better or for worse, that's how a lot of people are discovering new music nowadays.
For sure.
Probably the majority of young people are discovering music through 30-second clips on TikTok.
Right.
I hate it. I hate that. But I also grew up in a different time, and I also understand the importance of sort of having to now, and this is coming from someone who doesn't have a TikTok and probably never will have a TikTok, but I do understand the importance of having a TikTok if you're trying to reach as many people as possible with your music, if that's what your plan is and that is what what your desire is with your music.
Right.
So
here's the deal. Everyone finding music through other sources on the internet, if you really like that band that you heard on TikTok or you discovered on Spotify, like if you're a cool person, if you're decent, you'll probably go over to Bandcamp or go to their website and actually buy something from them, or go see them play live.
Exactly.
And so you have a better chance of more people supporting you because they discovered you. Like that is only logical. And so I don't know. It's just like this funny thing. Sometimes I just got to say, I think people hate it when other people have fun, and try to, like, I don't know, make them feel bad or point out what's wrong with everything that they like. I can say right now that every artist is problematic on some level.
Sure.
Every company is problematic on some level.
Sure.
And so I don't know what to do about that. Like today I had to buy a pillow. Where the fuck do you go buy a pillow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you could order one from Amazon, or you can go to Target or Walmart.
Yep.
And there's no local independent pillow stores that I know of, Yeah. And so I don't know. Just sometimes I think, and I guess, I should have just made my own pillow. That's what someone will tell me, but I don't know how to make a pillow.
Right.
I just feel like sometimes it gets a little overwhelming that we're not allowed to like anything anymore.
Boomer tape.
So I don't know. It's really hard to not exist in a capitalist machine. It's
now you do what they told you.
Especially when, I don't know, like, well, when we live in America, that's the number one reason why it's so tough.
Now you do what they told you.
Yeah.
But number two, it's also like, how else are we going to pay our rent?
Now you do what they told you.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. For me, it just seemed a little bit more like, people being haters a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pick a fight here with anyone. And I'm not even thinking of anyone specifically. I just know that I had an internal struggle about posting mine because I was like, oh, some people are going to think I'm an idiot and don't support local music or something. You know what I mean? Like I had to have that second guessing, having fun and sharing with my friends because people, I don't know, might think I'm not down or whatever. So that's just frustrating,
So here's another observation. Before we move on to the actual, well, I guess I don't know what is the actual meat of the show. But
the actual meat of this show is us supporting local music.
Yes, there we go. That's it. Yeah, of this particular episode.
And spreading it. Although, maybe you don't listen to this podcast on Spotify, but chances are you do. Just saying.
So here's another observation. I've noticed the Spotify thing didn't really become a problem until this year. Have you noticed that? Like no one really cared. No one really gave a shit until this year. And what happened this year? Neil Young pulled his music because of the Joe Rogan situation. So let's think about that. I would not be surprised if politics play a part in some of the hatred towards Spotify, which, in my opinion, and that could be a completely wrong observation. Who knows? But nonetheless, I guarantee that tons more people than who you see have probably been kind of boycotting Spotify after the whole Joe Rogan sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Joe Rogan, Neil Young situation. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I still like Neil Young's music. And, that's where, that's all I'll say about that. You know what I mean? Okay. I shouldn't say I like Neil Young's music. I should say that I like some of Neil Young's music.
And I like his hair. So
you like Neil Young's hair?
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. It reminds me of a Fraggle, sort of.
What about Joe Rogan's hair?
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of a Fraggle too.
Okay, yes.
Or a Dozer, actually.
A Dozer.
Should we talk about what we're doing this
I
episode?
think we should talk about what we're doing.
So, a lot of new local stuff came out this year that we didn't have an opportunity to get to before this point. So we decided to just do sort of a local music roundup. So we're going to review 5 releases today, all from Iowa artists. Let's talk about the music.
Let's talk about the music.
Come on, everybody, it's record time.
And what was the first one we agreed that we were going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Moody Marlin.
Moody Marlin.
Moody Marlin. Moody Marlin. I loved this release. It's put out by Pokies Records, which we reviewed 3 of their releases in the past. Pokies Records is run by Dolly Speary, who plays in PSYOP and runs this label and is just very busy person all the time doing it themselves. D.i.y. Yeah, you should check it out on Bandcamp. It has a nice write-up of what this is and who probably played on it or was involved in it somehow. But it sounds like this is a collection of songs by the infamous Moody Marlin, pieced together over years of traveling, wrong turns, and fast friendship. So, yeah, this seems like more of a collection of ideas and songs that have been being assembled, like it said, over some years. And it's split into 2 sides, side A, side B, and those are continuous tracks. I would say that they could be separated by song title. There are definitely songs within the tracks, side A and side B, but they do flow together and never really pause or let you know that they are separate songs. I loved this. I had a blast listening to it. I really adored it. I loved every aspect of it. It's goofy and creepy and just totally untethered from any sort of semblance of reality. Like, it is really pretty out there stuff, but presented in a really musical way and a really fun experimental way. It's a lot of it is strange rock and roll kind of feel, like literal rock and roll. Kind of like if you ever listen to Martin Rev from Suicide, his solo stuff. Really outsider rock and roll stuff. Sounds like Buddy Holly nodding off. And it's amazing stuff. This sort of had that feel to it for me as well. Just kind of like rock and roll filtered through total weirdness. It also veers into like kind of like psych country, like psychedelic country stuff, which, you know, had its moment mostly in the late 60s, early 70s. But it goes everywhere. There's reggae. A lot of it has fake drum beats. Some of it's real. A lot of it sounds as if it were recorded live in the moment, but then also has a really clear sound to a lot of it too. That sounds like, you know, the drum set might have been mic'd or the piano might have been mic'd or whatever, but it always has this feeling of something organically just brewing and happening within a room full of creative weirdos. And I really like that aspect of it too. The instrumentation is super, super cool. Like, at first you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. It's weird. It's goofy. It's going to use drum machines and out-of-tune guitars and stuff. But then all of a sudden, like a really amazing trumpet performance might come in, or just all kinds of stuff. Really well done and thought out and really cool arrangements. Things like that maybe when you first start listening, you're not expecting to hear that. I think the songs are deeper than they seem to be, which is kind of like what I was just saying. Like hidden under all that strangeness is some really fun and cool, inventive ideas. Yeah, I would say, like, if we're talking about like recommended if you like or whatever, I would definitely say The Residents, Captain Beefheart, the Holy Modal Rounders. Yeah, and maybe The Dead on some level. But yeah, I just it was a really fun experience to listen to this, and I don't know if we'll hear more because it sounds like this was a collection of things that happened over many years. But if more does come out, or if Moody Marlin plays, I definitely will check it out. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Eric. I think I absolutely loved listening to this in a lot of ways, and I don't think this is really surprising to anyone. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I grew up on, or really kind of got me interested in music, that sort of allowed me to realize that music doesn't always have to be just like 4/4 pop songs, doesn't have to be super slick, doesn't always have to be just straight ahead rock. There can be a lot of weird, interesting stuff happening. That's exactly what this is to me. It's just really like weird, interesting. Yeah, I can't think of a better term than like outsider rock music. There's, just a lot of, like, I agree with you, Eric, that I think that this type of stuff, there always seems to be more to it than what you think there is. And I did hear a lot of melody kind of being presented through the griminess. Mm-hmm. And I loved the sort of random aspect of it. Like you mentioned, it does seem like there was a lot of improvisation going on. I also liked how there were these sort of like weird skits. Like it just sounds like somebody and maybe a group of people kind of having a blast, and yeah, writing these songs sort of like, maybe, as you mentioned, Eric, in the moment. But at the same time, as you also mentioned, Eric, there does seem to be a knowledge of like good songwriting here too, because there's actually like really good melodies. Like some of it reminds me of like sort of like a warped version of like doo-wop, or something like that. But it's always kind of presented, it seems, through like the filter of like, yeah, like drum machines and like weird electronic sounds, sound effects, maybe even some voice manipulation, which I'm not sure if that's actually being used, like if there's actually like a voice box being used, or if it's just somebody kind of doing like imitating a voice or something like that, using their real voice. I can't really tell that sometimes. So, I kind of like the mystery of it a little bit too. Like I like the fact that we don't really know who or what Moody Marlin is. So the type of stuff that this reminds me a lot of, like Baron Zinn, reminds me a lot of that. As you mentioned, The Residents, but it really has the feel to me of, in particular, this album from Beck, Stereopathetic Soul Manure. It really has that sort of feeling. And the reason why is because on that record, I don't know if you've heard that one or not, Eric, but it's kind of like this. Yeah, it's like an indie record that Beck did with, I think it came out the same day as Mellow Gold, ironically. There's some really, really badly recorded stuff on that record, but then there's also these moments of like pure beauty, like the song Putting It Down, or the song Rowboat, or something like that, are both songs on that record. And that, I feel like that's kind of what is the feeling that's kind of conveyed here, is just sort of like it's like almost like finding like beauty and ugliness or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say ugliness, it's like, I don't mean that in a bad way, because I don't think this record could be presented any other way than how it is,
Mm-hmm.
for it to actually be impactful. So I also like the fact that it's split up into just side A and side B, because that adds to the mystery of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also just kind of forces you to listen to the whole thing like as sort of like almost like one piece, even though it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like that. I like it when bands choose to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really a really interesting release and I also like the fact that Pokey's Records, it kind of shows the range that Pokey's Records is sort of willing to, the sort of like the ideas that they're willing to explore and put out and stuff like that. That it's not just going to be like a hardcore punk label or grindcore label or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So.
And just so everyone's prepared, we're going to talk about 2 more Pokey's Records releases this episode. So
yes, this episode.
So
in fact,
deal with it, I guess.
We're going
know what to say.
We're going to start with number 2 right now, actually. So this release is from another Pokey's Records release called Bovinophobic Bile Puddle. The name of this release is BBP. And yeah, this is just straight up intense crust, punk, sludge. There's definitely elements of like early grindcore. Like I would say definitely some of this reminded me of like Napalm Death and stuff like that. It also is maybe more on the hardcore punk side of things than almost anything else, at least to me. Yeah, it's just really gnarly and sounds very grindy. The bass sounds almost like a chainsaw or something. And it's really in your face, really fast, really short. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's a really, really great release, and I think a great continuation on the type of stuff that Pokey's Records is kind of starting to become known for. I think bands that have an interesting take on this kind of stuff that's happening like right now. I would say that if as far as like the recommended, if you like, I would say like the band Hologram, who we also reviewed on this show. This reminded me a lot of that. Third Face and Shapeshifter, because what I think a lot of those bands have in common with this is that they're kind of doing this sort of new take on hardcore mixed with sort of like early sludgy grindcore type stuff. But it's still not like, when I say sludgy, it's not slow. It's generally like really fast. But then there's also sort of like just a little bit of like experimentation going in there as well. But also I would say if you're into like Void, I think that's definitely like a big comparison here. I hear some DFL, I hear some Bad Brains, something like Unsane. There was also this band called Godstomper, which this reminded me a lot of. Who did a split with the band He Who Corrupts. Yeah, so it's just really good, noisy, in your face, really well done, sort of like grindcore punk sludge. I don't really have anything else to say about that. It's just done really, really well. What did you think of it, Eric?
I liked it a lot. Like you said, it's really fast and it goes by quickly. I really like, okay, so like you said, it's really just straight, grimy, crusty, hardcore. But it's not exactly just that. I think it's unfair to say anything is just something. But I think what I like about this a lot is the people playing they're really young. Like their description on Bandcamp says shitty high school hardcore, noise, sludge, crust, whatever. Like, good attitude. I like it when people are this out there, this young. Like they have a lot of time to explore what this can turn into, or a lot of time just to keep honing this sound. Like it's exciting to me. Like sometimes, like if people put out music, you're like, well, yeah, this is probably what they're going to be doing forever. With this, I don't think so. I think it really lends itself to becoming different, and I think that's cool. But yeah, as far as this recording, the sound of it is lo-fi. It was recorded in a basement, and you can hear that. But what's cool about it is all of that adds to the urgency of it and the brutality of it. It is aggressive, but it's also brooding. Like there's a palpable frustration in this. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you can sort of hear that. I really like the use of the second vocalist on this. It was used to emphasize that emotion a little bit, rather than just having two vocalists singing separate parts over each other. This was more just like, it felt like to emphasize certain parts or words or phrases. I really enjoyed, there's a crazy ass siren sound at the end of the song Cheese Fries, and it goes on way too long, and it's just perfectly punishing. Like you're like, they can't just keep the sound going for this long, but they do, and it's sweet. So anyway, the production on this is just crushingly blown out. Like it had to have just been in the red the whole time, you know. It just has this overblown sound to it, which honestly, the only thing that I had to compare that to was the song Nervous Breakdown by Black Flag, how it just comes in, and it's almost like you hear the tape, they hit record. You can almost hear them hit record, you know, and then it just comes in and is just blown the fuck out. And that's sort of what it made me think of. Also, Bad Brains have that element, and musically, I think this was a bit like the Bad Brains too. It also reminded me of a lesser known band called Necros, from that same era. So I guess I heard it sort of as an old school hardcore thing, but definitely with a lot of new ideas as well.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool.
Definitely. Pokey's Records, man, they're killing it for sure. So on to our third release. Now this one is a complete sort of like, I was kind of taking a chance on this one because I didn't even, I just found this randomly because I came across, and I don't even remember how I came across this, but this record label out of Des Moines called 5CM Recordings. And there's another band that did a split with Moscow Puzzles, and they're called Haploid. And I ended up, I guess I do know how I ended up on the 5CM Bandcamp page, was through that rabbit hole. And I found this Excrete release called Waiting. And I just thought it looked and sounded very interesting. And boy, was I not disappointed. So I don't know really anything about Excrete, except I do know it's one guy, and he's from Des Moines and makes a really interesting take on sort of drone electronic industrial ambient music. I know I say this a lot about stuff like this, but I can't help it. This is how I guess I interpret things. But it really does sound to me at times like very science fiction like. There's a lot of just really cool, exciting noises. Yeah, there's a lot of drum machines here, a lot of synths, but it's also very oddly catchy in a weird sort of way. Like there's this sort of groove to it that almost sounds like something that you could dance to. And in fact, I'm sure you probably could dance to it if you found the right groove to some of this stuff, if not all of it. It's definitely got sort of like a, yeah, like an industrial sort of backdrop to it, I guess you could say. But there's also a lot of hip hop influences here. In particular, I remember there was this one track where the beat, the drums just totally sounded like a hip hop beat straight out of the 80s. And then there's also some really great new wave type stuff here. But the drums are very raw sounding and hard hitting. And that's what I really liked about it. It was a very interesting listen. And, I kind of think that this is sort of in the same. I could kind of see like some of the other solo projects that are kind of being done with this sort of thing in mind around the area, like Void Dweller. I could totally see being like a peer of this, And I'm not sure if those two know each other, or I don't even know if Excrete has ever played live. I mean, from what I can tell, it looks to me like this is maybe a new project. I could be completely wrong about it. But yeah, if you're really into that kind of stuff, I think this is the music for you, man. I would say if you're into like Kill Altars, a lot of this stuff kind of reminded me of that. I would say, and I'm not sure if Eric, because Eric is definitely the bigger fan of this group than I am, but from what I've heard of Skinny Puppy, I definitely heard a little bit of that in here. Also, in particular, the albums Machine Cuisine and Law of Ruins by Six Finger Satellite. The instrumentals of those records, some of this stuff reminded me of that. It's just very, very good stuff. And honestly, I don't have anything more to add, but I really enjoyed listening to this a lot. What did you think, Eric?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's very much, in the wheelhouse of stuff that I like. It's so
Sure.
yeah. I thought it was cool. It's like unplaceable in its own way. Like you can't really say it's one thing or the other. I don't know. Electronic dance noise. That might be something.
Yeah, I think that might be where I was trying to go with it.
Yeah. But yeah, really awesome synths, drum machines, all that stuff. What I really liked about it a lot though is the use of panning between the speakers, and hard panning, meaning that it stays there, but also like transient panning from one speaker to the other. It becomes almost immersive. I didn't listen to this in headphones, but I'm sure the experience is the same. It just, it almost makes you feel woozy. Like it's so swirling and constantly moving around sort of the sonic spectrum or landscape or whatever, that it is a little bit transcendent. Like you become part of it. I know that sounds weird and crazy, but that's how I felt. So yeah, it's spacey, it's angular, it's trippy, very scientific feeling, but also kind of funky and kind of groove oriented. And so it was a lot of fun to listen to. I don't have a lot to add to what Dan said. I think he covered a lot of what this is. But yeah, if you like what we've said and things we've mentioned, I would check it out. As far as things that it made me think of, Tobacco, Cluster, Kraftwerk, and Brainiac, some of their
Yes.
more like slower, weirder, more instrumental type pieces, not necessarily the crazy pop psycho.
Yeah.
I don't know what Brainiac does. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, Six Finger Satellite's a great one. Trans Am would be a great comparison too. Yeah, so if you like any of that stuff, you're gonna love this too. So
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I was honestly like, I listened to it a couple times, and the second time I listened to it, I liked it even better than the first time.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be on continuing rotation on my Spotify.
I'm going to listen to it on Bandcamp.
And I'm also going to listen to it on Bandcamp. And I might also buy the tape from Bandcamp, which you should too.
You should buy all of this music.
All of this music. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't go to Spotify because
everything we covered tonight or today
go to Bandcamp
is available for purchase on Bandcamp.
And not just tonight. Anytime that we talk about local releases, go check them out. And if you like them and they've got stuff for sale, please, by all means, purchase their stuff.
And you might discover a whole label of things like Dan did with this.
Exactly. 5CM Recordings, Pokies Records. Check it all out because it's all really good stuff. And speaking of Pokies Records, we have yet another one from Pokey. Man, these guys are good.
Yeah.
And they're putting out a lot of stuff. I believe that this is the latest release on Pokies Records, actually. And I do think right now it's number 6, but from what I can see, there's definitely more in store in 2023. But if you're into crust punk, sludge, early grindcore, but in a much different way, I think, than Bovinophobic Bile Puddle, you should definitely check out Animals on LSD. The name of the record is Warhorn. Now, this is also, I would say, it has elements of like all of those things that I just said, which I realize I also said that about BBP. However, whereas BBP was more on the hardcore punk side, I think this is actually more on the sludgy side, although there is definitely some fast stuff. But I would say that this, whereas I would maybe, when I mentioned Napalm Death with BBP, I talked about like I would say like their first album, Scum, there's a fast side, there's a slow side. Or you could even say like Black Flag's My War. There's a fast side, there's a slow side, you know? I would say that this would be more related to like the slow side of like hardcore. But it's really noisy. The production, I think, is really cool. It just continues down the path of what Pokies Records is putting out, which I think is good quality, newer hardcore that's around this area. I just think it's really cool that this kind of stuff is still, being put out and still being produced these days. And I would say that for me, if you're into, I don't know, there's a little bit of Melvins, like I mentioned, Black Flag, and I would say Void. But also, I would say that maybe one of the things that this band has more in common with than some of the other like hardcore bands is the amphetamine reptile bands. Like I would say like early Today Is the Day. I know that record, Sadness Will Prevail, you probably would listen to that and be like, what are you talking about? But at one time, Today Is the Day was actually more of a noise rock band. And so like their first 3 albums really had that sort of unsane sort of feel to it. I would say also like Cop Shoot Cop would definitely be a contender for comparison here. And I would say even the Jesus Lizard to a certain extent. But there definitely is more of a grindy element than the Jesus Lizard. But I don't know. Some of the bass lines, some of the guitar parts reminded me of stuff like that a little bit. I think there's a lot going on here. And I think it's just a really interesting take on this sort of hardcore, grindcore, crust punk sort of like crusty stuff that this label is putting out. And like BBP, I can definitely see them exploring some different territories in the future. And I'm very interested in where Animals on LSD is going to go in the future based on this release. Also, if you are going to Google them, I would not just leave the Google search at animals on LSD, because I did. And they literally showed me pictures of animals on LSD. So you want to put in animals on LSD, Pokey's Records, or animals on LSD Pan Camp or something. But if you actually want to see animals on LSD, just leave animals on LSD in the search engine, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So what'd you think, Eric?
Yeah, I liked animals on LSD. I had to go to the dark web to find video. No, I'm just kidding. No, I did love this, though. Here's the thing. To me, this was, I don't know how else to say it, like dreadfully disorienting.
Mm-hmm.
That Today is the Day record that we reviewed. What was it called?
Sadness Will Prevail.
Yeah.
Yep.
That also left me with a similar feeling of just kind of dread and bleakness. But the difference with this is there's also some serious intensity as well. Mm-hmm. But it seems really real. Like, I don't doubt for a second that the people making this are dead serious about it. And that's awesome. Like, but it's pretty intense, you know. The production is cool. I love the vocals. Like, they're so upfront in the mix. Crazy upfront. And I like that a lot. It makes it feel even more intense. And like Dan was saying with maybe the Jesus Lizard, that's something that I could see some sort of comparison to. I always felt like their vocals were just like, it almost makes the rest of the music duck out. It's so loud. And I love that on this release. I think it goes through a lot of different genres, so much so that it's pretty impossible to just put them in one genre. Like, it's a really nice melding of a lot of different things, to the point that I really feel like they have their own sound, and that's rare, you know. I loved the vocal samples. I don't know what they're from, but they're also very dark and bleak, but it adds to that overall bleakness. You know, it's like when you hear someone talking and they're telling a tragic or sad story, and there's sound or noise or music underneath, it's hard not to be affected by that. But yeah, I just found it to be really dark, and I really liked it. The other thing about it, though, that I maybe took differently than Dan was, for me, the production reminded me very much of early primitive black metal, maybe proto black metal. I don't know, like Hellhammer, the Celtic Frost or Celtic Frost first releases, Napalm Death, but then also like Millions of Dead Cops, MDC. I heard that in there too, as far as the music. But yeah, it does a lot of different things, and it does them all really well, and it's intense. So I take that as a warning or a recommendation. I don't know.
This is a warning. Step away from the car. This car is protected
by Viper. So,
all right.
Speaking of They Might Be Giants, me and the next person we're going to review, well, not person, we're going to review his album. We love They Might Be Giants. We once sang the entire discography up through Factory Showroom on our way back from somewhere in a van. Yeah, it was a blast. One of my favorite memories. So
that
anyway,
sounds amazing. Anyway, go on.
The person we're talking about is Brooks Strause, who I have the pleasure of being really close with. He's one of my best friends. And that's okay. You know, we're going to review things whether we know the people or not, or if we really know them. Anyway, Brooks Strause, the record's called On Vacation, came out, well, this year. So if you're listening to this, chances are you've heard Brooks's music, either with his solo stuff with the Old Scratch Revival Singers, back in the day, Beef Wellington, Septic.
Yeah, Septic, Marvin's Hour of Power.
Marvin's Hour of Power. So yeah, chances are you've heard Brooks. But this is cool. It's not On Vacation is not a huge departure as far as like how Brooks presents his songs, but I really feel like there's a new feeling, a new attitude sort of with this. It kind of feels like Brooks has freed himself from our expectations of him and his expectations of himself. I know that sounds really heady, but it's you can feel that there's a lightness to this that hasn't been as prominent in his previous things. It's lighter and calmer lyrically, but musically, I think it's deeper and it's more open, and it references itself. Like, this sounds like Brooks Strause to me. This doesn't sound like Brooks Strause sounding like someone else. And I think that's really amazing. The songs are, like I was saying, they're kind of free to become what they want to become. Like, the songs are open. The writing isn't so tight that we're limited to a certain idea, genre, tempo, mood, atmosphere. Any of that it's bound to change at some point, or at least it has the freedom to change at any given second. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, the production's amazing. Brooks has an amazing ear. He can create any sound that he wants to. He mixes amazingly. Like, if you want to really pay attention to some solid, thorough, and thought out production, Brooks will provide that for you. The instrumentation, the songs, the performances, all great. I do know that Brooks did all of the vocals on this himself, which is pretty amazing because a lot of them are very high. Some of them are very low. Like, he has a great range and he shows that off. Overall, just a really great, deep, indie, freak folk record. And I can't say enough about it. I love Brooks. I love his music, and you should check it out. I guess as far as things I could compare it to, Donovan, maybe, Oneida, Love, The Zombies. It has a kind of a 60s freak folk feel to it, more so than a modern freak folk feel to it. Yeah, like I said, I can't really say enough about it, except you should go give it a listen because you're going to like it. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I really don't have too much more to add to it than what you said, because I pretty much, I mean, literally, Eric, almost verbatim, but I guess maybe in a different way, pretty much wrote down a very similar account on this record. So what I wrote was, this is exactly what I'd expect from Brooks. However, there's elements that are sort of new that I've and that's kind of how it always is with Brooks's records.
Yeah,
like Brooks's music, you kind of know what to expect, but there's always kind of curveballs sort of like thrown as well. I think that Brooks likes to sort of have the listener comfortable enough that they want to keep listening, but then also still want you to sort of be on your toes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like he's kind of almost, he has this like musical communication where he kind of wants to, okay, well, now you're getting a little too comfortable, so I'm going to throw in like some weird instrument or something that I've never, really had on a recording, or I'm going to do like a vocal overdub to make my voice sound completely like dreamy and like psychotic or beautiful or whatever, you know what I mean? I definitely do get the feeling that there's something about this record that is a lot more relaxed than a lot of his previous stuff, for sure. Doesn't seem like he's as angry as he once was. Because, musically, if you go back to the discography of Brooks, there is a lot of like angry music there that I think was also really, necessary for the time, I guess. And this is just kind of my observation of knowing, I know Brooks about as good as you do in some ways, Eric, but also I know him differently than you do.
Sure.
Brooks was, we talked about this, Brooks was a childhood friend of mine. We kind of stopped really hanging out a lot, like around high school, but we always kind of ran around in similar circles. And in fact, we both discovered Eric's music, you know, kind of around the same time. But like, it's really good, man. I mean, that's really all I can say. One thing that I really like is the second track. It has these like sort of like dreamy vocals. Where you were kind of talking about how his vocal pitch kind of goes up and down, and like on this particular song, he had like this sort of like, I don't know if he kind of did like overdubs where he did like one track of sort of like his normal voice, and then the other track was he was doing like a higher register, but it came together and made this like really like almost like a shoegazy effect, if you know what I mean. At least that's how I heard it. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing, to be honest with you. I've always thought that Brooks was a great songwriter. Always has been talented. And yeah, this is just a continuation of that talent, really. There's elements of folk, Americana, definitely. There's you know, a lot of different instruments on it, minimal percussion, which I really kind of like. Yeah, I don't really know who I would compare this to. I think that like it totally sounds like Brooks Strause. And you know, if you kind of go back and you explore his discography on his Bandcamp, it totally makes sense that he would end up here in 2022, I think. But I would say if you're into like Bonnie Prince Billy, Brooks has always kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Yeah, I definitely hear like Donovan, not in sound, but in presentation. Like, I think if you're just into good singer-songwriter stuff, you're going to like it. I mean, and especially if you're a fan of Brooks's music, period. I don't see how you wouldn't like this. I honestly, I think this is one of my favorite things I've heard from Brooks, actually, to be honest.
It is mine too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, it's really great. I also like the fact that it was only 7 songs. I think that was kind of like the perfect amount. Like, you know, he didn't seem like he was trying to overdo anything, you know? And that was great. Sure. So, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that you're a childhood friend of Brooks, and I was an adult friend of Brooks, which means we got into some dirty stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
true. We have a very adult friendship. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes. You
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It'll be the end of the year by the next episode.
Yep.
So we are going to review our Spotify playlists.
Oh, I almost forgot how much I complained about that. Oh man.
Wouldn't it be funny? Spotify is like, who cares?
Yeah.
That would be
we don't need your approval.
I think it would be awesome if Spotify was ran by an old guy with a cigar named Spotify. Like, it's like, well, we got to go ask Spotify. I don't know why I think that's funny.
I'm imagining the guy on the cover of Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich. Is that the Warren album?
Yes, the Warren album.
That's what Spotify the Man looks like.
Spotify the Man.
I don't care. Like give them 4/1000ths of a cent. Fuck them. Oh, okay. You're about to hear 2 heart attacks live on the air right now.
Spotify the Man. Let's Spotify the Man. Okay, anyway.
We gotta go. Holy shit.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Get a hold of us. If you want us to complain about anything else, just hit us up on Instagram, and you guys have a good day, week, night, whatever it is when you're listening to this. Thank you for listening. And next time you're going to hear us talk about our top 10 favorite releases of 2022.
Oh shit.
Wait, are we going to do 10?
Yeah, we can do 10.
Okay, I didn't know
I'll
if we were
find
gonna do
something that was good.
we listened to a lot of music that came out this year. Did you hate it all? Just secretly?
No, I was just playing the boomer for a second.
Playing the boomer.
Yeah.
So you're playing the boomer and Spotifying the man.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Bye, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye. Oh man, I really went off.
Sclerosis may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or coughs, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.